Hey guys, it's me, Liberty Bear. Finally gonna make a second video. Haven't done this in a long time, but let's get started. Today we're gonna be talking about, I wouldn't call it a communist argument against capitalism, but I'll call it a strong argument, or at the very least one that made me think a lot more than the other arguments they present. So first of all, the argument that we're going to be talking about is this: that capitalism is inherently wrong because a worker, an employee of a company, works for a certain amount of money for himself, so their wage. So let's say you work for $10 an hour and you work 40 hours a week. You work for $400. Now your employer isn't going to hire you for that amount of money unless you're going to give them some kind of profit, as in your work is worth more than $400 a week to them. What that means from a communist perspective is that you're being paid less than what you're creating, as in you're creating more wealth than you're getting for yourself. So in essence, your employer is taking something from you since it's your labor, right? And so this made me think. I was like, hey, that's actually not a bad point, you know? You aren't keeping 100% of the fruits of your labor. Then I thought about it some more, as I do, as any skeptic or intellectual should hold themselves to do. And so, unless the argument was simply explained to me poorly by those who explained it to me, I think I have an answer to it, as in, not necessarily a refutation, but in a sense, yes, a refutation. So let's get into that. Let's talk about the implications of this argument. The argument is a moral one in that it says that because the worker doesn't keep 100% of the fruits of their labor, that is inherently morally wrong. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that notion if it's involuntary. If they involuntarily are having their fruits of their labor taken from them, that I would consider morally wrong. But the argument implies that it's wrong in every situation, no matter what, even if part of the wealth is given up voluntarily or part of the fruits are given up voluntarily. Sorry, my dog's over here. I'm trying to make sure I'm not stepping on him. If this wasn't the implication of the argument, if this isn't what they meant, then they wouldn't have an issue with an employee voluntarily allowing the employer to keep that profit, as it's called. Before I get to the meat of my rebuttal, I just want to say that the reason this argument even exists is because they're working off the labor theory of value, which we can talk about that another time. But the subjective theory of value, which is the one a capitalist abides by, says that profit, what he would get if he kept 100% of the fruits of his labor, the worker, is not worth as much to him as what he gets for working for an employer. And we'll discuss what he gets in a minute. Not to mention also in a communistic system, in a communist system, the role of the employer would simply leave from one individual, move on to massive individuals, as in the society itself, the communist society, in that you are required, or at least it's a unwritten rule that you provide for the society, and the society provides for you. A portion of your wealth goes to the society, like a portion of your wealth goes to an employer in capitalism. So it's still morally wrong in this, according to this argument. Let's get to what I said before. What does the worker get in return for the wealth he gives to his employer in terms of profit? We're talking about opportunity cost here. Anybody who's taken a basic economics class knows what opportunity cost is. It's what the opportunities you lose for choosing a certain option. So if you can have apples or oranges and you choose apples, the opportunity cost was oranges. So subjectively, in that analogy, the individual found the apple to be more valuable than the orange, and so he took it, giving him a net bonus, economically speaking. So what is the apple in the scenario of the worker and profit? Well, it's the benefits of specialization. Anybody who knows anything about history knows that specialization allows for progress overall as a society. When the agricultural revolution occurred, it allowed individuals who before could only produce enough food for themselves and their families, so everybody had to produce their own food. The agricultural revolution allowed one individual to provide for a much larger amount of individuals, which meant that those remaining individuals didn't have to focus on food. They could specialize in other things, which created things like the wheel and other kinds of tools and building, and it moved us from a hunting-gathering society of essentially nomads to a society which could settle in an area, survive for millennia, and progress technologically, ethically, culturally, in every sense of the word, progress. So the benefits of specialization are progression, are higher standards of living, are cheaper luxuries, more access to more resources more cheaply. And so the implication of the argument is that a man must keep 100% of the fruits of his labor. What this means is we should go back to the system where every man must provide food for himself, because if he can't give up any amount of his wealth for others, then there can be no specialization, because everybody has to provide for themselves. So what this means is if a man wants an iPhone, he has to mine the minerals and the metals and design the circuit board and the operating system and the computer to create the operating system. He has to build it from scratch. Otherwise, he's using somebody else's labor. He's essentially profiting off of somebody else's work, which is apparently wrong according to this argument. The argument is inherently regressive. By giving up a small portion of his labor to his employer, he allows for specialization and gets more. He chooses the more valuable option to himself, or herself, whatever. So there's a net gain, because then the employer gets profit, which is worth more to him than the other options he has, and the worker gets all the benefits of a modern society. So while, in a nutshell, yes, it is wrong to involuntarily take the fruit of someone's labor, in a capitalist society, individuals are voluntarily giving up fruits of their labor, like a farmer is voluntarily selling some of his crops to feed others, so that those others can specialize in, for instance, farm technology to make that farmer's job easier, so he can then produce more crops, which can then lead to more specialization and a higher standard of living and cheaper resources and higher quality products for the whole society. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you liked it, subscribe. I'll occasionally, every year, make a new video, I guess. So thanks for watching, guys. See you later.